Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS NFL Week 3. We're into. I'm starting off with Texans, Vikings in Minnesota. Let's go.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, like I said, Houston's on the road in Minnesota for this one. The Vikes are catching 2.5 points at home. This number's been bought down from 3.5, so some sharp action came in early and snagged those Minnesota plus 3.5s. Total sitting at 46.5, depending on your sports book. So let's get into this one, and we'll start with the pie charts. Now, as I keep saying, take this data with a grain of salt, but according to this data, public's coming in on Houston and the sharp actions on Minnesota, which actually makes sense with the line movement bought down from 3.5 to 2.5. So will Houston finally get a win over the Vikings? They've never beaten this franchise. They're 0-3 straight up and 0-3 against the spread. So not only have they never beaten them, they've never even covered the number against Minnesota since their inception into the league. Their offense so far, maybe not looking quite as crisp as we expected, but keep in mind it's only been 2 games and they got some new pieces there. They're 18th in yards per play, 14th in yards per pass attempt, 15th in yards per carry. Success rate, pretty average looking numbers. Same goes for EPA. So pretty average looking numbers across the board here for Houston's offense through 2 weeks. The offensive line's done a really good job creating space in the run game, specifically in that week 1 matchup against the Colts. They were bullying the Colts defensive front. Their offensive line sitting at 3rd in adjusted line yards, 5th in yards before contact as far as running the ball goes. And we really saw a night and day difference when it comes to the Houston rushing attack. In week 1 against Indy, 40 carries, 213 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. Joe Mixon got off to an excellent start, looking like they were going to be a running team this year. Didn't really happen against Chicago. Just 22 carries, 71 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Here's the thing. Minnesota's defense is closer to Chicago's than it is the Colts. In fact, Minnesota's defense might even be better than Chicago's defense this year. They're off to a great start. After 2 weeks, they're 7th in yards per play allowed, 4th in EPA, 12th in success rate, 9th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 7th in yards per carry allowed. This Vikings defense is looking really good. And keep in mind, this isn't weird. This is one of the better run defenses in the NFL last year. They actually finished last season 3rd, allowing just 3.8 yards per carry. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that this Vikings defense has come out the gate looking really good. I mean, look at the pieces they added. This was already a good defense last year. They added Steph Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, Blake Cashman, Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenner, Jerry Tillery. I mean, they added a bunch of pieces. Sure that they lost Danielle Hunter, and that's kind of what everyone saw, like, oh, they lost their best player. True, but they added a ton of good pieces. This Vikings defense is going to be really good this year. They did a pretty solid job against the 49ers last week. I mean, 17 points. Maybe not quite a clear picture of how that game went. The 49ers were moving the ball. Brock Purdy threw for 319 yards on 36 attempts. He had a passer rating over 101. So it's not that the 49ers couldn't move the ball at all. Jordan Mason was running the ball too. 20 carries, 100 yards. That's 5 yards per carry. So it's not like they completely shut down the 49ers offense, but no question, the Vikings played a pretty good game there defensively. So how does this defense match up against CJ Stroud and the Texans offense? Well, it's a Brian Flores run defense, so we already know what's coming. They're going to run a shitload of zone coverage, and they're going to blitz a shitload. It's exactly what they did last year. They were actually 1st in blitz rate, 1st in zone coverage frequency. That's what Brian Flores does. He blitzes, runs the zone. So how will CJ Stroud handle this type of defense? Well, the blitz could be an issue. CJ Stroud definitely struggled a little bit with pressure last year. I mean, as to be expected, he was a rookie. When given a clean pocket, CJ Stroud was probably the 2nd best quarterback in the NFL behind Brock Purdy. Look at these numbers. Yards per attempt, 2nd. Passer rating, 3rd. Turnover-worthy play rate, 6th. So when you give CJ Stroud a clean pocket, he cooked you last year. When pressure, those numbers definitely drop off. Not that he was terrible, but getting pressure on CJ Stroud is a must. So Brian Flores sending a bunch of blitzes at him, I mean, that's a solid start. That being said, CJ Stroud has done much better when pressured this year. So far in the season, he's 10 of 16, 181 yards, and a passer rating above 101. When pressured, that's 7th best in the NFL passer rating wise. So his 2nd year in the league, maybe he's improving in this department, handling pressure. And also, want to know who the most efficient quarterback in the NFL was last year, throwing the ball against zone coverage? CJ Stroud. He was 2nd in yards per attempt, 1st in EPA, 4th in turnover-worthy play rate. So CJ Stroud destroyed zone coverage last year. So he's improved against pressure, and last year he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL against zone coverage. So even though I like this Vikings defense a lot, I still expect CJ Stroud to be able to make some plays here. Yeah, maybe Joe Mixon and the Texans run game struggled to get it going. They struggled last week against Chicago. Joe Mixon was banged up in the game. So maybe Houston isn't able to run the ball much. But as far as throwing the ball, Stroud's going to make some plays here. But now we flip it over to the other side and look at the Vikings offense. They are second in the NFL in yards per play. Man, who would have guessed that first and second in the NFL in yards per play, Saints and Vikings? It's crazy. Second in yards per play, seventh in success rate, seventh in EPA. They've been throwing the ball. They've been running the ball really well. Top 10, even top 5 in rushing success rate so far on the season. The offensive line has been great. 5th in adjusted line yards, 3rd in run blocking grade, 15th in yards before contact. They have been allowing a little bit of pressure, but 3rd in adjusted sack rate. So Sam Darnold's just been great back there, not taking sacks, getting the ball out. And speaking of Sam Darnold, here are his numbers on the season. 72% completions, 238 yards per game, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 111.8 passer rating. I mean, he's been great. That being said, last week's game against the 49ers was a little bit deceiving. I mean, if you look at his stat line, you're like, oh, Sam Darnold played a good game. But if you take away that 197-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, his stat line doesn't look that great. I mean, it would have been 171 yards, 6.84 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I'm not saying he was bad. I'm just saying a 97-yard touchdown pass definitely makes the stats look a lot better. And Darnold's in for a tough one here because this Texans defense is no joke. So far this season, 7th in yards per play allowed, 7th in success rate, 8th in EPA. They're 2nd in the NFL in yards per carry allowed. Look at their defensive line metrics. They're 1st in adjusted line yards, 3rd in yards before contact. Nobody's getting push against this Houston defensive front. So something's got to give here because this Vikings offensive line has been getting push and getting the run game going, but nobody has been getting push on the Houston defensive line here. And that shouldn't shock you because Houston had one of the best, maybe the best run defense in the NFL last year, allowing just 3.6 yards per carry. That was 2nd in the NFL, 6th in run defense EPA, 2nd in run defense DVOA. So no question, I think we all expect Houston to have one of the best run defenses in the NFL again this year. So far, we've seen Sam Darnold look pretty good. Definitely helps when you have some run support, and I don't know if it's going to be there in this one. Week 1, they played the Giants. They were 29th in run defense DVOA last year. Then they played the 49ers. They were just 15th against the run last year. Now that Steve Wilkes is gone, I think we expect the 49ers run defense to be back in the top 10 this year, but we don't know that for a fact. This will be their toughest test. If the Vikings are able to run the ball on this Houston defense, then it's officially time for us to declare the Vikings as official. I don't think they're going to, though, which means there's going to be a lot of pressure on Sam Darnold to make plays through the air. And let's not forget that there's some issues here as far as receiving weapons. TJ Hawkinson is still out. He hasn't played yet this year. Jordan Addison, we don't really know if he's going to be out there. Justin Jefferson's listed as questionable. He got hurt last week. I don't have any information on whether or not these guys are going to play, but no question this should concern you considering the run game might not be there for the Vikings. And if the run game isn't there, who's Sam Darnold going to throw to? What if Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison don't play? Who's he throwing the ball to? Jalen Nailor? You're going to take Sam Darnold to Jalen Nailor? That's going to be the connection that beats the Texans or covers a 2.5-point line? I just can't see it. And honestly, I think Houston's defense might be one of the most undervalued units in all of football right now. They allowed 303 yards to the Colts, but Anthony Richardson connected on 2 bomb plays, 60 yards and 54 yards. Without those 2 plays, the Colts didn't even get 200 yards. The Bears did nothing offensively. If you watched the Texans' first 2 games, week 1 and week 2, they should have won both by more than a touchdown. I mean, it was weird that those games were close, which is why I'm really not concerned with what the Sharps are doing in this one. Apparently, they're coming in on Minnesota. I don't care. I mean, even if both those receivers play for Minnesota, Houston should win this game. They're the better team. I think their defense is that good, and CJ Stroud should be able to make plays on this Vikings secondary. So I'm on Houston. I haven't bet it yet because with those injury question marks next to the Vikings receivers, it makes it tough. If both are ruled in, we could probably get Houston -1.5 closer to kickoff. If both are ruled out, we'll probably get stuck with a 3. So it puts us in a real tough spot here. I can tell you I will not be on Minnesota, though. I think the Vikings are really going to struggle to move the ball in this game. So I'll be on Houston in some capacity, depending on what happens with the injuries, what happens with the line. Let's say Texans -2.5 for this video, but I have not bet this yet. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, when you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, you get access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. So if you're interested in any of that, head over to the website and sign up. Live shows, Saturday morning college football, 10 a.m. to kickoff. Sunday morning NFL, 11 a.m. to kickoff. So we're live for 2 hours straight leading up to kickoff on the weekends. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a good week 3 here. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.